Welcome to episode 1 of the Drum Corps Coffee Shop Podcast. My name is Rob, aka RBase311 on YouTube. And today I'm joined with my co-host from here on out, Mr. George Collins.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, thanks for being here and for agreeing to co-host the podcast. This is something new to try as, I don't know, with the pandemic and everything.
Yeah, I know that the coffee shop has been around for how long now?
We started in about June of 2017.
Mm-hmm. And, kudos to you for creating such a good space to talk about the activity and celebrate the activity online.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. When I started all this, I wanted a positive place where everybody from all generations can talk about the activity that we all love.
Right.
So,
and so in starting a podcast, have you thought about exactly why you want to start, why you want to do this now? Was it mainly because of what's going on with COVID, or was it something that you've wanted to do for a little while?
Honestly, I kind of thought about it a little bit, but now with COVID and everything, I'm so used to recording lots, and hasn't been a lot to record.
Yeah, you need something to do. You need equipment to buy.
Yeah, trust me, I have plenty of equipment, but there's always more stuff to buy.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I thought this would be a cool thing to kind of try to connect the history of our activity from our era, the late 80s, early 90s, on up to now, and how we got to where we are now. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think both of us started, like anyone else, as being really young, being exposed to this, and and becoming big fans.
Yes.
I know you and I are both driven by a real enthusiasm,
yes,
for the activity, on a very, very basic level, and this is just an extension of that.
For sure. And you and I are pretty much I want to say we're the exact same age,
Mm-hmm.
and we both kind of came up around the same era. I started enjoying the activity and watching it when I was 14. That was, I hate to date myself, but 1988 was really when I started to get into it a little bit.
Yeah, I was lucky in that my high school was taught by a guy who marched snare at VK, Brian Becerro. So, right into high school, it's actually a pretty funny story about the first time I ever saw a drum corps show, was the first day of band camp. And it was we had gone up into the mountains to go away for a week and to learn the show and everything. And the first night they showed us a tape of the PBS broadcast.
From 88 or from
86.
87? Oh, 86.
86. So the broadcast opened with the first thing you saw was a shot of the Blue Devils drumline doing the spider visual.
Oh, yeah.
And then and then Vanguard. And I remember watching it just being whoa, what is this? This is amazing, right?
Wow.
So, and then as we go out onto the field, to learn the opening sets of the show, I was playing top bass at the time, my 1 year playing bass drum. I turned to the guy behind me who was a sophomore, and I said, so when do we go up against those guys?
Could you imagine being in high school and having to compete against the Blue Devils in the Vanguard?
I had no idea. But I think having an instructor marching a great group like that back then, really helped sort of instill that, gave me something really to look up to.
Yeah, for sure.
And then my rookie year was 1990, marching VK. I was 16.
So
I turned 17 on tour. This was 9. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, so how did you end up at VK? Was did your instructor say, hey, you should go audition? Or?
Well, I mean, at the time, they were the only sort of big group around as an option. If you were a kid in Southern California, you were either going to have to move up north and try out for Blue Devils or Santa Clara, which seemed a little bit out of reach, at the time for me. So I went and auditioned at VK, which was the big Southern California group at the time.
Yeah.
And my instructor had aged out the year before. And they had a huge amount of turnover.
From the
previous,
89 to 90?
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, the 89 drumline was so good.
Yeah, the 89 VK drumline was smoking. I mean, now you have one of the quad players from that year is the drummer for Rascal Flatts.
Yep. And a very young Roger Carter was in that line. I think he was like 15 years old.
15 years old, babyface.
Yeah. So they had this huge turnover, and went to the auditions, and luckily I made it. Everybody knew that I was that Brian had taught me in high school because of my left hand. Like literally, Dave DeLulo, who's a Blue Devil guy, he was caption head at the time, and he said, Brian taught you, I can tell, and it wasn't a good thing, but at least it wasn't a good thing as far as technique and stuff I had to fix, but it was a good thing in that he knew that I came from good stock.
Yeah.
That I had.
So it wasn't a good left hand.
It was not a good left hand.
What was the term that they used? I think I've heard it before.
Yeah, I mean it was not me, but another guy who I also went to high school with, who also had the same left hand but worse. DeLulo said his left hand was born of a jackal.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So in high school, let's touch back on high school a little bit. Whereabouts in Southern California did you grow up?
So I was a South Bay kid. I actually grew up in Inglewood.
That's on the west side of Los Angeles.
That's
correct?
right. It's on the west side of Los Angeles. It's in an area of town that's south of LAX, on the coast still. And I went to Bishop Montgomery High School, which was a Catholic high school that my stepdad had gone to. So even though we lived in Inglewood, I went to this Catholic high school in Torrance. And I was really lucky because they had built up their band program. Their band program was really on the rise at that time.
I remember seeing them, and I specifically remember the drumline. The drumline was pretty smoking.
Yeah, and so I mean, because it was funny. We would always play for our drum features. We would always play watered down versions of stuff that drum corps had done.
That was the pretty much the stock thing that I think a lot of groups did back then.
Absolutely. So I knew, I knew all the tunes, but the parts that I knew were always these really watered down versions. We played Appalachian Spring.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We did a watered down, 87 Cadets and a watered down 87 Blue Devils. But once again, that just kept that love going, early on for me.
Did you guys call it Inglewood, or did you say Inglewood?
Yeah, Inglewood, always up to no good. And also in the probably less than a mile away from the Forum.
Yeah, the fabulous Forum.
Go Lakers, by the way.
The former home of the Lakers until Staples Center opened up.
As we're recording this, it's Game 5 tonight.
Who do you got? I I have to ask. But I know who it is. I mean,
always Lakers. Lakers all the time.
Now, see, for me, I grew up a Lakers fan, but I have a family that works in the Heat organization.
Yeah.
And so it's I love the Lakers, but I got to root for the Heat.
Well, hopefully, even though they've had a great run, hopefully that run ends tonight. But we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, we're, who knows what's going to happen after we film this. But it's funny because I was thinking, in sort of preparation for talking today, how I was very focused on sort of kind of turning people into superheroes back then. So the Lakers were actual superheroes to me. I remember we grew up on the old Super Friends cartoons.
Yeah.
And so you had the Justice League and you had the Legion of Doom.
The Legion
right?
of Doom, yep.
So when I was growing up, for me, it wasn't really actually Lakers Celtics. For me, the Legion of Doom was the San Antonio Spurs.
Not the Pistons?
It wasn't the Pistons. Well, and because this is sort of early 80s prior to those big battles. Because in the West, what you had these teams, this team in the San Antonio Spurs that for Magic Johnson and Kareem, they had sort of the evil version. They had George Gervin.
The Iceman.
Yeah, and Artis Gilmore.
Yeah.
And they were same size, similar games, but the Spurs were all in black. What's funny is when I sort of grew up, that sort of superhero kind of tendency for me then turned to drum corps. So when I started marching, especially like my rookie year, like I was saying, I was 16, I turned 17 on tour, and every night during first tour, I would see 90 Blue Devils.
Now that's a good line to be able to watch every night.
Man.
Yeah.
90 Blue Devils and 90 Vanguard.
Yeah. Smoking.
I mean,
the tenor line.
Every night.
Yeah.
Watching, Murray Gussick in the line.
Yeah.
Playing Martian Mambo, and McIntosh and Pete Sapadin and all of those guys, and just clean. And like I said, for me, I saw those guys as superhuman.
Yep, for sure.
And that's what sort of solidified for me, sort of like the next chapter, like high school was over.
Yeah.
And so what was I going to do? Was I going to keep continuing to do this? And that just nailed it for me. I was like, I looked at that and I said, one day, I'm going to march Blue Devils.
Well, that's I think pretty much all of us. Once you get a taste of it, it's in you. I mean, look at us now. We're old dudes, but we still enjoy going out and just watching lots and recording lots.
Yes.
Like for me, growing up, I totally understand the superhero reference. 83 Blue Devils. That was the first thing I'd ever heard on one of the guys in my high school, one of the seniors. I was a freshman. He gave me this bootleg cassette, and it had like 80 BD on it. Or I'm sorry, 83 BD, 83 Garfield, 83 Madison, 83 Suncoast Sound, and 83 Cavaliers. But Blue Devils, I mean, Paradox.
Yeah. Just
everything. And then you just sit there and you try to fake whatever parts you can. And
yeah, and it's funny because I have this theory, and it's great that you bring that up because we can sort of dig in on that. I have this theory that one of the reasons why I love, and I'm guessing you love, and sort of treasure the idea of lot content,
Yeah.
And documenting as much of this activity as we can, is that back then we were so starved for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like there was YouTube back then or anything. You were lucky if you got like a bootleg cassette that was 4 generations removed from whoever recorded it.
Yep, and I specifically remember when I made Blue Devils and when I was living at the drum pad, YouTube back then was one video cassette. And it was this sort of famous video cassette that sort of got passed around, to sort of everybody's households. And the one thing that I remember was on it was the 1987 individual and ensemble competition.
Oh, yeah.
And where Blue Devils had 4 snare drummers compete. And I want to say they took first, second, and third. And then I think it was Dave Hart did an exhibition, But it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But anything that we had, we treasured. I remember that I would literally take, I want to say it was like, I had recordings of finals, 86, 87, 88, 89. And when I took showers, I would put in the cassette, and I would listen to like 6 cores during my shower, and that was like my ritual, my routine. And
dude, that's a long shower if you're listening to 6 cores.
I know my parents hated it, and we would, and so you would get sort of. I wore those tapes out, and it was ingrained in me so much. In '94, I lived in Berkeley with another guy who marched, my friend Derek, and he was.
Hold on real quick.
Yeah.
Just so people understand, back in the early 90s, late 80s or early 90s, the drum corps, I mean, it was kind of different. There was no flying in for camps or anything. If you were in the drumline, you pretty much had to move
up in January.
You move up in January, and it was like maybe 10 or so guys living in a 1-bedroom apartment, and trying to make it all work with top ramen and sometimes no electricity, from what I understand. I stayed here in Southern California all the time I marched. So
yeah, I'm guessing that there is some form of that with move-ins now.
Yeah,
but back then, thinking that you were going to, essentially move in with a bunch of your buddies, for, 5 months, even before you start learning like drill for the show.
That's crazy.
And stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And all you're doing is you're getting a job, surviving, and drumming together all the time.
Day in, day out,
All the time.
on a pad, everything,
Yeah.
Old recordings,
Yeah.
new stuff. Yeah.
So things like when Derek and I would drive to rehearsal or whatever it was, I would sing horn parts because I knew like every show, and he would drum like all the parts to the shows because he was really good at transcribing stuff.
Oh.
And he like for example, 89 Blue Devils was one of his favorite shows, and I could not believe that he was able, off of like audio cassettes,
To transcribe all
to
that.
transcribe all of the parts. I'm sure he got some stickings wrong here and there, but that's how we did it back then. And it, having to grow up in an environment like that was great.
Oh yeah.
Because like you didn't take, like you had to work. Not to say that kids don't have to work now. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is the extra effort that was required really just made it that much more meaningful.
But the stuff that they do nowadays, it's remarkably incredible. For lack of a better term.
Yeah, I mean, the advent of YouTube and just the culture and the community that's out there is, kids have incredible resources available to them, and everybody's getting better younger, which only benefits the activity because then what you can do, on the field or on the basketball court grows.
Yeah.
And designers can just be like, what can we throw at these kids now? That back in the day, maybe they wanted to do, but couldn't.
But what's cool now, like for us, for our generation, it was like you had to have good hands. Because you look at some of our winter drumline from back in our era, and it's funny because I saw a picture just yesterday of a line back then, and
Yep.
and like if you were a good like high school line, you had 3 or 4 snares, 2 quads, and if you had four basses, you were like, oh, they have 4 basses. Look at
Yep.
how good they are.
And you could win the whole thing.
You could win the whole thing like
With-
that,
with
standing
the-
still
Yep.
in uniforms.
It's funny. It's funny because Texas, like their circuit,
Yeah.
is still like that.
Kind of reminiscent of that old.
But they learn their stuff in the fall.
Yeah.
You know?
But they do like a combined like band and drumline thing,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yep. So
Texas is probably like its own beast. It'd
For
be
sure.
cool to go and hang out there one day and just like talk to people from there on their preparation and the mindset into how they do things.
yeah,
over there.
how they approach percussion education is totally different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's systematic.
Yeah.
It's built into how they think about music education in the schools, and how they hire people,
Yeah.
and all of that stuff.
Just in general, you talk about nowadays. One thing I noticed, like the younger generation, they're better musicians
Mm-hmm.
than we were back then. I hate to say it like that because I'm not trying to shortchange anybody, but
After I aged out, I tried to be an instructor
yeah,
for my old high school,
Yeah.
and I was horrible. And I think about, like I teach now
Yeah.
with kids who are just aged out, and they're fantastic. Like
Oh, yeah.
they're great. And what I will say is the progress that's been made and that is constantly made in education is fantastic. And it, like, in terms of like what you focus on, and how you strive to get more
yeah,
out of the kids. And it's not just about performing a particular show well, it's about preparing them for the future. So I think when you look at progress, it has really served, kids well as far as the kind of education that they receive nowadays. It's pretty phenomenal.
yeah, for sure. So 90, it was your rookie year in VK.
Yep.
You guys finished 10th.
10th.
91, I know you stayed at VK, and there was
Yep.
a staff change there.
Yep. Ralph and Glenn had left
Santa Clara. Yeah.
And that was 90 was a big year. Like Float,
yeah.
Blue Devils after that year.
That kind of broke my heart back then, because I was all through high school. Yeah, I'm going to be Blue Devils and a Tom Float drumline. Oh, Tom Float drumline, Blue Devils. And then, boom, 90 happens. And then you have 91.
Yep. And so there was a lot of turmoil as far as, designers switching places and players switching places. So
we could hopefully do that whole 91 thing in a different episode, because
absolutely.
That is like, I think you said it before, the ESPN.
ESPN 30 for 30.
That 91 in general needs like an ESPN 30 for 30.
Yeah. So Ralph and Glenn came down to Southern California and taught VK that year. And Rennick took over Blue Devils.
Yeah. Which a lot of people don't even know that.
Yeah.
That little tidbit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did VK that year, and we didn't make finals that year.
Yeah.
We missed out. That was thanks to Blue Knights. Blue Knights was like the new sort of, finalist.
Yeah. With their very kind of progressive type shows. But VK that year, staff change, and there was a whole kind of philosophy change on how they wanted to approach show design, and that I think that had a lot to do with it also.
Yep.
I mean, I wasn't there because I didn't march until 92 VK.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, talking to people who'd marched 91, it was like there was a switch in philosophy as far as doing stuff.
So here's my take on VK. And I feel like this is important to talk about. VK was in the mid, like the late 80s. You could probably put 86 in there, 86 through 90, or 89 at least. They were fantastic because they were so informal, right?
Yeah.
They were the clown princes of drum corps.
That was their thing. Yeah.
But they were also really good.
Oh yeah, and what people don't realize, for what they did, they still worked hard to achieve what they did.
Right. So after that, they had I want to say like the highest they had placed was 7th.
7th, yeah, 87.
And during that period, they always had a good drum line. But after that, things started to sort of shift towards looking backwards for the corps. So instead of pushing themselves forward and basically using the same philosophy that got them there, that got them to the point that they were, they started to look backwards and essentially do shows that were like cartoons of themselves. It was just like a repeat of good stuff that you had done before. And
it was like Magical Mystery Tour Part 7.
Right, and like you're trying to recapture something. And when you do that, that's when you stop moving forward.
Yeah.
You get stuck, you put yourself in a box. And I feel like that's a real shame. And ultimately, like, the corps didn't last much longer after you had marched there.
No.
And I think that's partially due to the fact that they sort of had that, and also there were administrative things and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But
the 2 of the 3 years that I was there, we had some administrative issues, and it sucked because we had like real good drum lines during those times.
Yep.
And it's like, I don't know, I feel like our drum lines were wasted on certain shows.
Yeah. Getting back to like, my time at VK, I feel like after 2 years there, I had run my course and I wanted to pursue my dream.
And which was Turmoil,
which was marching Blue Devils.
Yeah.
And again, I was very lucky because the Rennick experiment at Blue Devils wasn't wholly successful.
Yeah.
I actually auditioned for him. He was still there in 92, but was not there by the time I moved up to actually like move in.
Yeah.
But that was an experience where I needed to pursue, the reason why I was doing it in the first place. So, like I said, I was really lucky in that there weren't a whole lot of vets. There were a couple, just enough to sort of, keep the culture alive.
But you had, didn't you have guys from Vanguard that ended up over there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Mike French had come over.
Yeah.
That whole, like we sort of said earlier, that whole period after Float and Ralph had left Blue Devils and Vanguard, really caused, there were ripples.
The shakeup. Yeah. The shaking of the tree.
Yeah.
But I mean,
and then Scott went to Vanguard.
I was just about to say that. I mean, Vanguard, and then they killed everybody.
Yeah.
And like the 91 line, I know they won drums and they were good, but to me that 92 line, just the amount of talent, that line was completely stacked.
Yes.
92 Vanguard, we're talking.
Yeah. Jeff Queen was new to that line. I had marched with him at VK.
Yeah.
Future, two-time individual champion. Nick Angelis, who had already won individuals by the time he went to Vanguard, and then that tenor line was, with Murray and Colin McNutt.
Would you say that 92 Vanguard tenor line is still kind of like the litmus test as far as?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on.
It's different. I understand everything's different, but.
Well, no, I mean, this is what I would say. I would say that if you look at what they were able to achieve, which was, that people still remember that line.
Yeah.
More so than they remember anything else about that year.
Yep.
You know? But then also when you look at who came out of that line, and the fact that Murray was, as influential, continues to be as influential as he is.
Yeah.
Colin McNutt also.
Yep.
And I mean, there's a lot of the sort of the foundations of the way a lot of lines play today and approach things today were established and being formed and figured out back then.
Yeah.
So that was really special. We got, like, when I was at Blue Devils, we got our butts kicked by them a lot.
Dude, but how about that original book that you guys had before the hose came out?
Oh man, Dave Glide, was, before he had took over the Blue Devils percussion program, taught at Clovis West High School. They had done WGI and stuff, and
this was when WGI was still kind of in its infancy.
This was mid '90s WGI, and his books were so fun. Yeah, they were so good. Roger joined us late in '92.
You're talking Roger Carter, correct?
Roger Carter, and I remember he pulled up to Mars and we were working on our second tune, El Congo. And he was just standing there watching us play it, being like, oh man, like I have to learn that. Yeah. The beats were really, really fun.
Oh, I have video that somebody gave me that I recently saw and digitized of the, I guess, early season, the drum solo. And I couldn't believe how many just crazy back sticking off hi-hat and everything else. Yeah.
And this was also still back when Blue Devils was known for playing jazz. Yeah. And like every year they were going to play big, beautiful jazz songs, incredible horn line. That was the first year, that was the year we played When a Man Loves a Woman.
Yeah. Did you take your shirt off?
Yes. No, it wasn't off. It was just,
it was just ripped open. Yeah.
It was just ripped open.
I couldn't get away with that. Nobody wants to see that.
But that was, that was amazing. And it's funny because like, we worked so hard at VK. We got our butts kicked all the time. And so then I go up to Blue Devils and, by the food truck, they had like, I specifically remember they had this big bowl of Reese's peanut butter cups. It was just like out there. Yeah. And when we started learning the show, Jay Murphy was like, you guys are going to start the show sitting on dice. You're just going to chill for the first part of the show. Yeah. For the opening statement. You're just going to sit on dice and kind of hang out. And that was my intro into like design that was smarter, Yeah. And, really really making the most out of the work that you're going to do.
Yeah.
Instead of having it be wasted on compensating for stuff, where you're coming up short. So there was a couple of years at Blue Devils, 92, 93, where it was, Glide trying to figure it out, and the drumline was steadily growing, getting better every year.
Then that was still like the traditional Blue Devils.
It was
for that era.
I really consider it, and I feel like I feel lucky to have marched during that time, because I went to Blue Devils for a specific reason.
Yeah.
I went there to wear that uniform.
Yep.
I went there to play Chugga to Chugga.
Yeah.
Robbie Bucks.
Robbie Bucks, yeah.
And I wanted to be able to take part in all of those rituals.
To wear the super suit.
Yeah. And I got to.
I totally understand
I got to,
that,
but I got to during, when we back then there was a preseason concert that we did and Vanguard did and Mandarins did.
Yeah, the Concord Pavilion.
The Concord Pavilion.
Yes.
And when we stepped out onto that floor and they counted off Robbie Bucks, when French counted off Robbie Bucks, like, it was unbelievable.
Like, I'm here.
I'm here. That is legitimately what it felt like.
Yeah, I get that.
But it was definitely a transition period for the percussion side of that group. And then Scott came.
Yeah, 94.
In 94.
Scott and Kevin Murray, correct?
Scott and Kevin Murray. And then also a bunch of visual guys, Todd Ryan.
From Star.
Ron Harden.
Yeah.
Came over because Star didn't, 93, after that, they were done.
Yeah, they did the brass theater.
Yeah, so there was a real double whammy with that group as far as the infusion of new staff. And, they were telling us, like in January, February camp, that our goal was to win.
Oh, yeah.
That we were going to win based on the amount of talent that had shown up and the staff. They felt like all they really had to do was ride this incredible wave of talent that had been infused suddenly into the group, and it was going to happen.
Yeah, I always tell people that the 94 Blue Devil snare line, it was like the Galaxy champions. That's how I see that snare line in my eyes, as you guys were pretty stacked, and it was somewhat bittersweet for me because I marched with a lot of those guys at VK.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, they went, and it's like
Roger Ladd.
Yeah, Roger Ladd, and even I can't think of it. Ty Hope. Yeah.
And Ty Hope.
Yeah, and then you think about it, like at least half that snare line was VK alumni at one time or another. Yeah. So it's cool. We didn't make finals 94. Our drum line, we scored pretty high. On field percussion,
that was Rennick.
Yeah, Rennick and Float. Rennick and Float. We got.
So you actually got to get some float in your life.
Yes. Which was my goal in high school. I wanted to be in a tom float drumline.
And you got to learn from Rennick as he was trying to figure out sort of the drum corps thing.
Yes.
Because he had the UNT thing.
Yes.
But the drum corps thing was something that he was just like, okay, let me try to get in there. So it was very, very early.
And he pretty much willed us to be a good line. We went on 14th at semis, but we tied for second in field percussion, which for us, that was for the battery, that was we tied for second in field percussion.
Yeah.
And it was a big accomplishment for us. I think we finished 6th or 7th overall.
Yeah.
Because we always get slammed on the ensemble score because it was all, they don't want to hear just notes, you know. Yeah. But it was cool. 94 was, big year for the Blue Devils though.
Yeah. And the story that I like to say is that every change that they made, like our uniform.
Yeah.
It was the first, 94 was the first year we had changed the uniform from the old uniform. We changed our warm up. We held on to Robbie Bucks that year.
Yeah.
But that was the first year that we played the ditty. We hated all of that.
I bet I knew, Roger Ladd, I know he wanted to wear the suit, and then all of a sudden I hate to use the term costumes, but here's these costumes, you know.
Yep. Yeah, we felt like, you know, they were Star Trek uniforms.
Yeah,
we felt like they were sort of like blue versions of like what the Cavaliers had.
Yeah.
And the Diddy, we had no idea what to make of that, you know.
I can only imagine. Hey, here's your new exercise.
This isn't a surprise to say we didn't necessarily have the best attitudes back when we marched.
Yeah, it was a lot different back then as far as attitude wise.
The egos were pretty big. But what was nice, you know, is that, you know, because if I would have been a little bit younger, I would have marched like all of Scott's years. I mean, not all of Scott's years, but like a couple of years after that, after I aged out, that were really good.
Dude, I always remember the 97 line was just
I would have had multiple rings, multiple drum titles.
Yeah.
But what I loved was marching the transition.
Yeah.
Was the fact that 94 created something that was the beginning of something new.
Yes.
For the Corps. And it's rare when you get to do that.
Yeah.
I've talked to, you know, I whenever I have the chance to do that teaching wise, whether it be like a brand new group or whether it be a group that is, you know, trying to make a huge leap forward, you know, there's a real difference between joining a group that's already good and just trying to sustain that and repeat that versus trying to create it.
Yes.
Where it didn't exist before.
Yeah. I tell people this, though, too. The 94 Blue Devil show, an iconic show. I'm just overall in general, people love that show and everything. But I feel if you would have used the old uniforms for that show, I don't think it would have worked. I mean, it would have been cool, but I don't think it would have had the same effect as doing the transition over to the new, like you call them, the Star Trek uniforms.
It was essentially like new branding.
Yeah.
We wanted people to look at us in a new way.
Yeah.
I would say a good comparison is when Mike Jackson went to Blue Knights.
Yeah.
And they totally changed their look and they changed their way of designing shows and they were rewarded for that. People looked at the Corps in a new way.
Yeah.
And it's not leaving traditions behind. It's figuring out a way to keep that tradition of excellence moving forward and to evolve, you know, and to give opportunity to designers. I mean, like Scott was admittedly, he will say he was a very young designer back then.
Yeah.
You know, so I am all for that, as far as like, you know, and it's hilarious to think that like Scott was way younger than I am now. You know, when he was teaching me back then, and
because you don't see it in those terms. I mean,
right, and that Kevin Murray was, you know, he aged out in '88.
Yeah,
it was, you know, he was in his mid-20s teaching us.
But you see it as different. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Back then, we definitely saw it as
like a lot older when he's really not that much older.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you only face that and realize that when then you become a teacher.
Yeah.
And then you try to, you know, you try to do what they did and realize, at that age I didn't do anything close to what those guys.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, okay, for example, not Blue Devils, but let's look at cadets.
Mm-hmm.
89, Tom Onks takes over that program. You know, back then I thought,
I love that year, by the way.
Oh, dude, I could talk 89. We got to do a show somewhere down the line, just 89 cadets. Mm-hmm. But dude, he aged out in 84, and in 89 he's handed the keys to a Ferrari. And
yeah,
how old was he then? 25, 26?
Yeah,
that's crazy. You think about that. 25, 26, be a captain head of a big, you know, multi-world championship corps.
I know.
But
Glenn,
but when we're that age, you see him being a lot older than what he actually was.
Glenn talks about that too, because right after he aged out of Blue Devils,
yeah,
I think it was 84.
84.
He went to cadets.
Yeah, 84. He was there 85, 86.
And
I want to say.
And he was teaching with a young Tom Hannum.
Yeah.
At the time, and teaching Angst in the line. You know.
No, I think Angst aged out 84.
Oh, okay.
But I think he was on staff there too.
Oh,
in
that's right.
85,
That's right.
86, yeah.
But they were just young guys trying to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. But when you're back then at the age like a young guy marching, the age gap seems so much bigger than what it actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
100%.
Okay, so you're there, Blue Devils, 94, and then you're there 95.
Yep.
You guys go, I hate to bring this up, go undefeated all the way up till
Yeah.
finals
We were
week?
super happy.
Yeah.
I remember this is actually the championship program. I don't even know if they still have those from 1995. And I remember when we pulled in it was in Buffalo that year, which was where championships were my rookie year.
Yeah.
So
90,
I got to
bookend them.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got to do that. And I'm here on the cover. But I just remember being like, oh man, like I'm on the cover of the program for DCI finals.
Yeah.
And we were undefeated. Like we literally hadn't lost a show since the beginning of 94.
Yeah.
And we were at finals in 95. 94, we were so well received.
Yeah.
That was an era where you would do victory concerts instead of like an after show sort of rotation of groups. You would actually do a victory concert because you won the show. So we were doing victory concerts at every show. And in 94, we were getting cheered like crazy.
Yeah.
Because everybody was like, Blue Devils is back.
Because it was different. Yeah.
And it had been 8 years since Blue Devils had won.
Yeah.
So everybody was like just celebrating the fact that we were back. By the time 95 rolled around, everybody was tired of that. And we were getting booed.
Really?
Oh yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy to think about.
As soon as we left California, we were getting booed plus our show was darker.
Yeah.
You know,
that was a real dark show, yeah.
But we were like, oh, like we're the bad guys this year. Like momentum is against us this year. And we had, Cavaliers was really good that year. Cadets was really good that year.
Dude, but what's crazy, like I remember prior to the beginning of the season, I mean, it wasn't like it is now where you see what everybody's doing. Mm-hmm. It was, the hype was Madison 95, Madison 95.
Yep.
Cavaliers, here on the West Coast, we really didn't even talk about them. And then all of a sudden, boom, they ended up winning.
Yeah.
But Madison still had the 95 show, still one of their most iconic shows.
Yeah, and isn't it funny how that works? It's like, regardless of how a group places, when you have the benefit of being so many years removed, what do people remember? Like what lasts throughout?
Well, that's like
time?
We were talking 92 Vanguard, and I remember before the season that was like the hype. Oh, 92 Vanguard, they're going to be the ones with 92 Vanguard, and then for whatever reason they didn't place as high as what the expectations were going into the season. But it doesn't matter. That was still a great show for them.
People still remember that line.
Yeah, that line and the show because it's Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the end of 95 wasn't a great. We ended up taking third that year. Very similar to exactly what happened to Blue Devils in 88.
88, and that's one of the most iconic Blue Devil shows, in my opinion. I like one of my all-time favorites.
Speaking of Madison controversy.
Yeah.
That year. Everybody's like, I want to say that the sort of running line is that Madison robbed Santa Clara that year. And then Santa Clara then, sort of came back and did the same show in 89, but then people are like, Phantom should have won.
Yeah.
Year.
Man, we're going to have to do an episode of just the 87, 88, 89 finals week. Oh, that's going to be some coming down the line on the Drum Corps Coffee Shop podcast.
Yeah.
The last 3 years of the 80s finals. Stay tuned.
Yeah. So 95, I aged out, and it was, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable getting to be a Blue Devil for that long, getting to march 6 years of drum corps.
Yeah. That's
as
awesome.
A kid,
yeah.
As a kid, living away from home from January to August every year, and getting to grow up that way, was amazing.
Kind of the gypsy lifestyle back then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But okay, so drum corps done, and you and I during that time we met and became friends doing RCC.
Yeah. So Roger
Carter again.
Roger Carter was like, hey, come and do the RCC fall fall line.
Well, there was no RCC winter line back then.
There was no RCC
it was
winter
just
line.
the fall line, yeah.
And I was like, sure,
Yeah.
why not? My hands felt better than they had ever felt in my life. And so that's where we met.
Yeah, and we became friends. And
Yep.
Yeah.
And we actually like...
Well, I want to say we met before that during marching, but where we
Yes.
really started kind of hanging out.
For sure.
Yeah.
And had some amazing times doing that. Like we actually learned a drumline show that we performed at BOA.
Yeah, the during the fall season, yeah.
Yep. And
that's on YouTube, but
probably
you don't want to watch that, no.
probably one of my favorite memories from back then was marching the Hollywood Christmas Parade. That was like so fun.
And see, I hated parades. But
Yeah.
I mean, that was a cool parade.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like I just remember it being like a really, really amazing, just like, just a really amazing experience.
And back then it was like, okay, I remember talking to Gary Locke.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I wonder what should we play for the Hollywood Christmas Parade? Because there were a couple different options. Dude, let's just play Celebration like over and over. The crowd just gets into that. And I think that's what we did.
Yeah.
Because that was cool. That was like a RCC stock chart.
Yeah. But clearly, drumming was not out of my system.
Yeah.
So a couple of years after that, I want to say I didn't drum anywhere in '96.
Now, you're going to college at the time, right?
I was going to Cal State Fullerton.
And I want to say, initially, I don't know how it ended up, but weren't you getting a degree in like kinesiology or something along those lines?
I was getting a degree in, I don't know if I had changed my major at that point, but I, went to I studied television and film.
Yeah.
At Fullerton. So I was doing that while I still had a couple of years left of college because of having to move up.
Yeah,
and
of
only
course.
being able to go to college the fall.
Putting your life on hold for drum corps, yeah.
So then 97, 98 rolls around and Float is doing, well, he did the Long Beach City College drumline.
Yeah, I did that one of those years, like the 95. And it's crazy how different like the winter drumline scene was. Lines that were the big lines then aren't really like that big of lines now, but that's for another episode, I guess.
Yeah. But so after the Long Beach line, he did the Kingsman line.
Yeah, and I didn't even know about that until way later because I
Yeah.
kind of left the scene for a little while.
But I basically joined that line, and I got to drum a bunch of like old VK charts.
Yeah,
and Pete was in that line.
the
Pete
old float charts probably.
And I want to say, like Mike Langens was in that line.
Yeah.
And like a bunch of old VK guys were in that line, and a young Mike Bedard was in that line. And that was fantastic. And we would basically do like exhibitions. And by this time, drumline had started the basketball court thing.
Yeah.
Like going from being on a football field and going indoors to being on the basketball court.
And it's a trip. Like, okay, back then, and I jokingly would tell my wife, I used to know everybody. Now I don't know anybody. But back then, I remember talking with one of the instructors, and they were saying, "Yeah, we're gonna do the WGI indoor next year." I'm like, "Indoor? What is that? That's not gonna last." And
yeah. And then after I did that, like drumming as a performer was sort of finally out of my system.
Yeah.
And in '99, I taught a group called the Black Knights.
Yeah.
With my friend Chris Burrows.
Okay.
Who
Yeah, I
I
know
marched
Chris.
with in '95.
Tenor player, correct?
Tenor player. Great tenor player. Marched, mid to late '90s, and that was they rehearsed in Burbank, and they were a group that went to WGI. So that was my introduction to WGI. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
So they were an independent world group, fantastic group, great young kids. I taught a young Kurt Hench that year who went on to march Blue Devils, and Paul Hansen who went on to march Santa Clara.
Yeah.
And I want to say and Blue Devils too. My memory sucks, so I apologize if I screw some of these things up. But I went and taught that line, got my first taste of WGI. We got crushed. We were an independent world group, and we took 6th place out of 6
Oh,
when
man.
we got there. But it was fantastic. It
Yeah.
was like there's this whole other world that exists
Yeah.
now.
Just drumming without horns or
Right.
anything. Yeah.
Right. And at that point, I then shut it down and left to go work in Hollywood
Wow.
because I had finally graduated.
You had a degree.
I had a degree, and I'm like, if I'm gonna move forward with my life, this is when and I literally left all of that behind.
Yeah.
Before we get into modern day, which is sort of like I had left for a while and then I came back.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the other sort of thing that started back then, which was the lot, content
Yeah.
stuff.
No, back then there was, I don't really even think there was a place to play all that stuff. It was like,
No, it
just
was
for your own personal stash.
essentially like, think about it like this. Back then, even owning a personal computer was a big deal.
Yeah. They were
know.
expensive.
You had these big desktops, and you had Windows, like Windows 95 wasn't even a thing
Yeah.
back then. And if you had an internet account, it was probably like an AOL account.
Yeah.
So the idea of being able to watch video online was not a possibility at all.
No, none whatsoever. Like VHS, they were not online, but there was still VHS. Yeah.
But like we, I said sort of at the beginning of our conversation, I personally had this real love of the experience
Yeah.
of, seeing drum lines and hearing drum lines and the impact that had on me. So what actually began, when I was a member. And I was remembering this as I was like digging through my old stuff. I had a cassette recorder that I would put in my uniform pocket while we performed.
Do you still have any of those tapes? Oh,
No, I wish I did. Oh man.
man, that'd be like
And
gold.
I specifically remember like some amazing recordings at like Pavilion of just, like the sort of kind of muffled first person perspective.
Yeah.
That was that version of having a GoPro.
Yeah, like POV before POV was
Having
a thing,
having a Walkman in your pocket
yeah.
was, so, and that was while I was marching. So after, like I said, I did my thing at RCC, and then around the time that I was doing the Kingsman line, I would fly out to tour, and I would hook up with a friend of mine who marched Blue Devils Horn Line,
Okay.
and we would pick, she was like in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And so what was convenient was there was a whole bunch of shows that we could go to within like a week period of time.
Yeah.
And so I would go out and I would buy a bunch of disposable cameras, and I had my cassette recorder.
Wow.
So opening the treasure box, what I would have to do is buy a whole bunch of disposable cameras and come home, and literally every single one of these envelopes, each one of these envelopes was a whole camera.
Wow. The disposable camera.
The disposable camera. So
Dude.
then, and if you want to, like, you can
Let me see.
Yeah, you can check that out.
Are these dated at all?
No, but if you look through, you can sort of tell what year they
Wow.
are based on the lines. But
Wow.
But okay, so that year, so here's what I would have to do. I would have to go and record stuff on cassette.
Yeah.
I would take pictures on, with that disposable camera. Then I would come home. I would have to get these developed at my local thrifty or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. And then I had to use a flatbed scanner to then scan these into my computer and build a web page that had audio clips and photos.
That's crazy.
And that was like, and the big innovation, I would say, of the time was the idea that you could have that online without having to wait for finals.
Yeah.
or something like that. But, you know, so the thing was back then we all had dial-up connections, right?
So it was super slow.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to say I may have had in the beginning maybe an AOL webpage, but I upgraded
To GeoCities.
to GeoCities and an Earthlink dial-up account, and it would probably take like for maybe a 3-minute audio clip, it would probably take an hour to an hour and a half.
I bet.
To upload, but it was a dial-up connection, so it used your house phone.
Yeah.
So I would be uploading these clips, and then my parents would pick up the phone and blow the upload. It would just be like, and crash, and then I would have to start
all over again. Yeah.
But it was
the struggles. Yeah.
It was a labor of love.
Oh, of course.
Because I was like, this is now like everybody can see this.
Yeah.
You know, anybody. But then on the other end, you would have to wait like a half an hour to an hour to download on the other side.
Yeah.
You know, if you wanted
to hear
watch
it.
that stuff.
Yeah.
So then.
So well, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you record was it like that episode of What's Happening with Rerun with the tape recorder running around? Is that how you would get your audio, or how did you do it?
Yeah. I mean, I would basically, you know, I snuck the recorder into a couple of shows. Yeah. Like inside. But to me, that was like, who cares?
I was always scared the drum corps police would catch me recording. Yeah. Little did I know that. Yeah.
I was actually, I want to say like after that, I was a pretty fearless bootlegger.
Yeah.
But when I was first trying to figure that out, it was basically just go stand in front of a drum line and pick like, okay, today I'm going to watch Cadets. Today I'm going to watch Santa Clara. And just stand in front of them and just hold my recorder out. Not all that dissimilar to what we do now.
Dude, and now when I record, and the only reason I started really getting into videoing and stuff like that, and I actually enjoy it now, was to get stuff for the coffee shop, the coffee shop pages. But now when I'm there and I'm recording, like I said, nobody knows me anymore, and I get nervous and want to make sure I don't know I didn't know what the protocol is, but now people are cool with me doing it.
And I think
before, when I first started doing it, I just looked like some bandit out there.
Yeah, like we would go and we would record RCC.
Yeah.
And we'd ask Sean like, hey,
is this cool? Yeah.
Where can we stand? And he's like, anywhere you want.
Yeah, the first time I recorded,
you have full access.
Yeah, the first time I recorded RCC, I was nervous. And Sean was super cool. Hey, wherever you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got this video of like the 2018 winter line, and there happened to be a bench at Damien High School, and I got like the best video of them, like the early season, and it's on YouTube. I want to say that's my most viewed video on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, in between 97 and 98, I was like, I have to upgrade. So just like we do today, where I'm like, got to get a better camera, got to get a better setup. I had to get a better setup. So I did some research, and I stumbled on this new technology called a mini disc,
and which was not even here in the United States, correct?
Right. Yeah, and there was mini discs and there was digital audio tape. Yeah. Those were the two sort of competing technologies at the time. But this was digital recording, the first digital recording versus analog recording.
Wow.
Higher quality. And so I went online and I found in Japan.
Let's open up. What's in the treasure box here?
Yeah.
What'd you bring for us?
So let me open this thing up.
All right.
In Japan, they made this guy, a sharp mini disc recorder.
Wow.
And it has this like little display on it, which was nothing had that at the time. And you could title your recordings.
Yeah. Dude, that display cracks me up because it looks like, you remember those little pet toys at the time, Tamagotchi or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It has a very sort of Japanese like look.
Yeah, it does for that era. For sure.
And this little Sony microphone was we prided ourselves. We were like, this is the best,
cutting edge.
This is the best quality small microphone. There's a lot of like videos online of like Weckel and Vinny, especially that I bootlegged, that were made with this exact microphone
Wow.
that were incredible. But back then I was like, I gotta upgrade. I gotta have.
It's nonstop upgrading. Trust me, I know.
Yeah. And, you know, and it's funny how even back then, when it was so difficult,
Yeah.
I was like, lot content and sort of sharing that experience was something that I wanted to celebrate
Oh,
and do and put forth.
well, you think about it. You got to think about it in these terms. You're documenting the history of the activity.
And thank goodness we did.
Yeah.
You know, for like all the people that I know, like on your channel, people have sent you videos
Oh, yeah,
from
yeah.
back then. And amazing that they had the wherewithal to make those videos because they were for personal use.
Yep.
Back then, uploading that stuff online was not practical at all.
No.
But because they did that, now somebody like you can take that stuff and digitize it, and we can have that.
You don't know how much I love it when I come across some, I call it unearthed treasure, treasure, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like I'm opening a box, pulling out like 90 Blue Devils, 92 Vanguard videos and stuff. Cause it's like the coolest thing to be able to see all that stuff. And like me, I think a big reason why I enjoy recording stuff now is because I wish there was somebody back when I marched that had done that for
100%.
me. Yeah. So I do it for enjoying, I love the beats and all, but I hope the kids appreciate that, you know, someone's out there getting stuff for them.
I think you and I are motivated, you know, very similarly in that way. We want to give to the community, you know, and,
for sure,
and do something for the community, for everybody that can't be there in person.
Yes.
You know, and it's a lot less for the views because it's not like we care about you know, making money in that way, or even just the fame.
No.
It's not about that at all. It's,
Drum corps famous, yeah.
Who cares?
No,
it's literally about celebrating the activity.
And
just
sure.
being like what I love, or sort of when I think back to being that young 16-year-old on first tour and seeing like the magic that I felt.
Yeah.
Right. That is something that I chase a lot, even still. And because the better I got, the more knowledgeable that I got, it became harder to see those things as being magical because you know everything that goes into it.
Yeah.
Right. But I want to be there when a group does that for me.
Oh yeah.
You know, when I stand in front of a group and I'm like, yes.
Dude,
like,
I totally get it. To stand like the last few years of the Blue Knights, watching their drumline a lot, or Blue Coats, and you know.
And for anybody who knows me, they know that I actually, ironically, am not like moved by the majority of stuff that I see. I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's because I really want groups to
blow you away.
Yeah. And to reach that level of like, it's not even, I mean, because I love clean. Clean is amazing. Clean is everything. Clean is forever.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mike McIntosh. But for me, it's, especially now, like I work in Hollywood, I represent artists, people who are trying to express themselves. To me, that's what I want to see these days. That's what really gets me going.
Yeah.
And when I see that, I can't help but want to share that.
Yeah, for sure.
With people and to be like, isn't this great? Like there are still people that I'll be like, I mean, you're one of them, where I'll stumble across a video, you know, like early season George Mason 2019, where I was like, I don't even know what this is.
Yeah.
But this is amazing.
I remember you shared that video with me, and then see Homeboy out there doing a rap, and it's like, wow. And just a total different type of show. Yeah.
And I will say, I don't know those guys.
No.
I only know them externally.
Yeah.
And stuff. But what I saw from 2018 to 2019, 2019 was this massive shift as far as show design with them, where it just seemed like, 2019, they were just like, we're going to do what we want to do.
Yeah.
And we're going to be not less concerned about how we do, but not have that factor into our design too much. This is going to be more about, I have this thing in my head that needs to live.
Yeah.
And we're going to make it live. And it's going to be received however it's received. Like we don't really care. And because they did that, it was celebrated.
Were you ever able to get the CD that you'd wanted to get there in the lot?
No. But what I did like was in the sort of chaos after retreat in 2019, me and a couple of friends of mine had run into a member of
the GMU drumline?
Yeah, of George Mason, and just literally just told them how much we love their show.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that was everything.
Yeah.
Like being able to do that was everything. So, that, and I think what's nice, Rob, is that you and I have rebonded in recent years over our love for making live videos.
For sure.
So
hold on, back a second. We're back to your mini disc.
Yeah.
Was that stored like on, what did that record to?
Let's open up the treasure box. Let's take out, the folder. So this right here is a mini disc. Kind of looks like a cross between a compact disc, like a CD, and a floppy disk.
Yeah, it looks like a little floppy disk with a CD in it.
Yeah, and I have it labeled with whatever that was. And it's funny because I look at these, it says DCI Midwest Preview 7/31/98 and Blue Devils on Stage 8/1/98. I don't remember that. So I'm glad I have this.
Dude, but it looks like in your little pouch, how many discs do you have there?
Well, unfortunately, from my time back then, I only have 4. But I have other stuff, like a lot of the jazz bootlegs, the concert bootlegs that I talked about. I still have a lot of that stuff.
So is that stuff still out there now, or do we need to get that re-put out there?
I want to say that once again, like my good friend Derek DeFields digitized and uploaded that stuff a while back.
Okay,
then.
Cool.
Like there's one specific video of Vinny that was made at the Baked Potato.
Yeah.
It's black and white. It's kind of black and whitish because it was shot in night vision.
Yeah.
But it gets shared all the time.
That's cool.
That's my video. And I was literally standing on a chair, like got up on a chair next to him, and I shot down over his shoulder.
Wow.
While he was playing, and he didn't
care?
Well,
he didn't tell you anything?
He I'm admitting to all this stuff right now. So he didn't say anything then.
Yeah.
However, the next night he played again. I don't know if it was the next night or it might have been, but it was very soon after he played again at the other Baked Potato, the one that was in Hollywood with a new ensemble. And we weren't even recording. Like it was because it was a different venue. We didn't have it figured out as much. And he looked over and recognized us in the mid-song and stopped playing.
Oh, shoot.
And shook his head at us.
Like he was pissed?
Like he was pissed, and that he wasn't going to play if we were going to record him.
Wow.
But we weren't. We weren't recording him.
Wow.
At the time.
No, but still, just for him to stop playing and look at you.
That was legitimately.
It's like you say, tick.
That was legitimately very scary.
He keyed you guys.
The other story. The other story that I have about that is, we went and saw Dave Weckl.
Wow.
At a very small jazz club up in Bel Air. It was called Rocco. And we had this setup where it was like the camera was in a bag.
Yeah.
And the bag was just sitting on our table, kind of like a purse.
Yeah.
But he could tell that we were recording him.
He's probably seen everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So he was like, he came up to us afterwards and he said, I hope you guys really enjoyed the show, you know,
He straight up just walked over to you guys.
and said,
Yeah.
give me the videotape.
Oh man.
And so I was like, yeah, dude, totally
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
So I reached into my backpack and I gave him a blank videotape. Sorry.
So, do you still have that video of Weckl?
No.
Oh,
I
dude,
don't have any of these things.
man,
I'm lucky that I still have this stuff because I have a box of drum corps stuff that I saved.
somewhere, someplace,
Yeah.
there's some POV cassette tapes from
Yeah.
Blue Devils 94, 95.
Sitting in a landfill.
Oh, that's
somewhere.
along with the ET Atari
Yep.
video games. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's cool. Okay, so you started recording, but now let's fast forward a little bit.
Yep.
Now I know you do a lot of one-on-one teaching, and I jokingly call you the drum whisperer and the professor because
Sure.
you've helped kids get to that next level, to the highest level of where they want to get to.
Right.
How did that start? What year did that start?
So, I came back to the activity primarily because of Facebook.
Yeah.
I joined Facebook. All of my marching band friends were just like, be my friend. And then I was like, oh yeah, band, drum corps, drumline. Pete Sappinen asked me to teach with him. And that was my introduction into like independent.
Was this at Odyssey?
WGI. This was OCI.
OCI. Okay.
So I taught there 2012, 2013. Went to Dark Sky, taught there for 4 years.
Yeah.
And it was during my time at Dark Sky that I started giving private lessons.
Yeah. No. Was it hard to jump back into teaching after being away for so long?
We can talk about that. It was incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Because I didn't remember anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I after sort of shaking the dust off, I could still drum.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how things had evolved, right? So in the beginning, it really was just observing what the people around me who knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And being like, okay, how do I make sense of that?
Yeah.
Right? So, Pete was obviously somebody very early on. Jared Andrews was somebody, early on. Matt Padilla, Miguel. Just watching and going, okay, what kind of vocabulary are they using? What are they focusing on? What's important? How are they doing this? How are they breaking stuff
Yeah,
down?
because it's like way different than our era for sure.
And I would say like during my time, sort of mid Dark Sky, during that period, I really felt more comfortable.
Yeah.
With what I was teaching, and I was basically like, what am I going to do with that? Because at that point I was in the box cleaning shows. I wasn't really doing anything one-on-one.
Yeah.
So 2017 Dark Sky, I literally remember there was a rehearsal where we were staging and I was talking to my friend Jamie Hawley, who I had marched with and who's a Vish guy, Blue Devils, RCC, United Percussion now, I think too. Amazing guy, great guy. But I was talking to him and I was talking to him about essentially teaching individuals and asking him about, I was like, there are people that come through that are just, they have it.
Yeah.
They're great, but then there are people, there are kids that come through that have a little bit of a more difficult time. They struggle. How do you change the path of those kids?
Yeah.
Of the kids who actually really, really need help.
Yeah.
That was intriguing to me. And so that year I started drumming individually with two of the girls who marched in Dark Sky from Japan.
Yeah.
Yuka
Uh-huh.
and another girl named Chika. And I would just meet with them once a week because English was still a little bit difficult for them. And I felt like they needed more individual attention just to make sure that we weren't missing anything with them. So I would meet up with them and we would just go to a park and we would drum. And then more people started sort of joining that. And so like Ricky Gildamontis, Sean Parra.
Yeah.
You know, they came on a couple of times.
That's
and
cool.
we would just drum, and then, you know, Yuka went on to March Blue Nights.
Yeah.
That year.
This was 2017, right?
This was summer of
Okay.
of 2017.
Yeah, I love that Blue Nights line. Yeah.
Yeah, but Sean and Ricky didn't march anywhere
Yeah.
that summer. And so I was talking to them, and I knew that, like, for Ricky especially, marching Blue Devils and RCC was a big goal.
That was the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was taking lessons from a lot of people, like, you know, like Nick RC, Jared Andrews, I think. Once again, my memory. But I was like, okay, here are some guys who don't have anything to do all summer.
Yeah.
And even though they're sort of at a disadvantage of not being forced to drum every day at a certain level with other people and getting this instruction, can I still help them progress and get them closer to this goal
Yeah.
of marching a place like RCC? So we literally were just like, okay, we're going to meet every week, and we are going to, what we had chosen to work on was percussion IQ. Shout out to percussion IQ. Probably the best.
Yeah, they got a lot of great stuff
As
going
far
on.
as like what's asked of you when you do percussion IQ, not to mention the feedback that they give you, hands down, the best way to prepare to and test yourself to see what needs to happen for you to, you know, make the best groups in the country. So we chose that. And Percussion IQ has this thing where they say, you know, if you can score above a 90 on our evaluation, you get a black wristband. That's kind of like a marker for them. So that was our goal. Our goal was, we're going to work all summer. We're going to work this material. You guys are going to submit, and we're going to see if we can get you black wristbands and get you on the radar of guys like Regwa and guys like Jared Andrews and guys like that whole circle.
To where they want to be.
Right. So that people are like, okay, I'm going to keep an eye out for you at auditions.
I know this person. Yeah.
Right.
I remember you. Yeah,
and
for sure.
You know, because I think what a lot of kids don't, they don't realize about when what staffs are looking for is they're looking for known quantities. So if they've seen you multiple times, what a staff person will do is then look at your rate of progress, and they will factor that in to how good you are the day when you show up at auditions. Because what they're trying to extrapolate is how good are you going to be moving forward.
Yeah.
Right. So some people, they show up and they're really good, and then they get stuck.
They don't know how to push past that.
Right. Like they've sort of just hit a ceiling.
Yeah.
And now they're sort of stuck. And you don't find that out when you're a staff person until you're mid-season and you're trying to clean the show and you can't get any better. So what I wanted, you know, the guys that would make the decision about whether to take Sean and Ricky, I wanted them to see them beforehand and get a sense of them beforehand. And that's what the Percussion IQ thing was for. So then after that, they had like a month, you know, to prepare for RCC auditions. And what I told them was, find some RCC guys and drum with them.
Yeah.
Like they were really good friends with, I think, Jacob Little at the time. And because then it was like, okay, we take all this work that we did all summer, which both of them got way better.
Yeah.
All summer. And then it was, let's then use these guys that are in the community and that we have relationships with to hone in and to be like micro adjustments, little adjustments here and there. And Ricky worked his butt off in between submitting for Percussion IQ and the RCC winter auditions. And what I told them was, which is something that I tell all students when I work with them, is specifically if it's for, you know, audition prep, is you need to walk in and within, you know, the first block, you need to know that you're going to make it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like walking in and like aiming for the bubble, like maybe I have a chance or whatever. No, you got to walk in and you need to know, because of how you prepared.
Yeah.
You need to know I'm in.
So you got to have that confidence.
Because if you don't know, the staff isn't thinking that. And the goal is to make the staff think that. To make the staff go, oh yeah, well those guys are in.
Yeah.
Or those girls are in. And because when you're on the bubble, who knows what can happen when it comes to making that kind of decision. And so we had set very specific milestones to hit. And that year, those two guys were the only guys that made it.
That's cool. So you prepared them well enough for them to make that
RCC
line.
decided only to go 7 that year.
Was this 18?
This was 18.
Yeah, yeah.
They decided to, and it was 5 vets, guys that had been there, like Jay Reddicks, Alan Ongst, like a long time, Jacob. And they said, we're just going to take these 2 guys.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we were like, job's not done, right? Let's go make Blue Devils, right? So then there was this short period of time. And in my mind, I was like, look, when they make RCC and they start getting all of that education, that's the best possible preparation for Blue Devils.
Yeah.
Because they share so much of the same, not just the same teachers, but the same philosophy and all of that. But we would still meet every once in a while to work very specifically on like things in the book.
Yeah.
And to just check in. But at that point, I sort of knew they just need to take the door that's been open for them to go on. And they ended up making Blue Devils.
That's cool.
Which for me was like, yes. Like the idea that I marched Blue Devils as a snare drummer, and the best thing you can ask for as when you become a teacher is to enable a student of yours to get that same kind of experience. So that was really, really special for me.
I bet.
And then sort of built on that success of like people going, oh, Sean and Ricky, like, they worked with George. All of a sudden, word started to spread a little bit. And other people started hitting me up.
Yeah.
And with the same intention.
Yeah.
I want to march this specific place. Help me do that.
Yeah.
So like the year after, I helped Yuka prepare for Blue Coat auditions, and I helped Aya Strauss, prepare for Broken City auditions, and the year after that, I taught Odyssey percussion, and I had and then that was like a 1-year thing, and we were open class. And we didn't even make it past prelims.
Wow.
Like we went to Dayton and performed once.
Wow.
We were...
That's got to be rough.
We were getting ready to unload our truck for semis. And somebody was like, we didn't make semis. And just being like, okay, I guess we're not unloading the truck.
Yeah.
Total bummer. So then that summer, my goal was helping... Literally, I worked with, all the kids that wanted to.
Yeah.
And the year after that, I helped kids make POW and Broken City and RCC and what's the group that Henry's teaching at now?
Vessel.
Yes. Sorry. It slipped my mind. And Dark Sky.
Yes.
Where I taught before. And, like one of our bass drummers from Odyssey made Pulse. So he went from like not making semis independent open to the next year placing second in world.
That's awesome.
Shout out to Jacob.
Jacob's
fantastic kid.
Cool guy. I
Superstar.
I don't think I've met him like one-on-one.
Dr. Longfeet.
I don't think I met him one-on-one, but from what I've seen online and stuff, and
yeah.
Seems like a very nice kid.
And other things along the way, like the person who actually made this candle, Genevieve Hilburn, she came to me and I helped her prepare for Bluecoats auditions, and she ended up marching Bluecoats not last summer, because there was no last summer.
2019. Yeah. Dude, it's so hard. Isn't it so hard to not think of 2019 as last summer? But yeah.
So, and look, I'm not going to say that every story has been a success story. Yeah. There's been plenty of students that I've worked with where we didn't meet the goal. But what that forced me to do is really test what I teach. And I think what's funny is I think a lot of people would sort of say that I'm a little bit of an enigma in that I'm not high profile at all. Like, I don't teach high profile groups. I don't endorse any products. Or anything like that. People don't know who I am, or people either don't know who I am or they know who I am. Yeah. But there's no sort of like, I've heard of that guy.
No. Yeah. And that's what's funny. I've talked to different people and I say, George and who? Yeah. But no, it's cool. You like, what's a good analogy? You're just like the guy in Kung Fu that just walks around.
And what I
mean though? The guy that from Kung Fu, the David Carradine character that goes around helping people. And
like people would joke that I live in a shack on top of a mountain and you have to sort of seek me out.
Yeah.
But for me, it really is just about the kid.
Yeah.
And helping them achieve what they want to achieve. What that necessitates, though, is that I don't teach every kid the same thing. So when you ask people what I teach, like I've heard about this George guy, what does he teach? It's really hard to pin down because it's always changing.
Yeah, there's no one thing you teach. You have to manage personalities
plus if I have something that I come up with that's really successful for one student, that doesn't mean it's going to be successful for somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's not their problem that it doesn't work for them. If anything, it's on me as an educator to figure out, okay, this isn't clicking for them. I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
It's not like I got things the same time in the same way that other people got things when I was a member.
Yeah.
So why would I expect that of these kids? So I am notorious for the information changing all the time and just for trying weird stuff.
Yeah.
Because I'm all about like, let's try this and see what works. At the very least, we're going to find out stuff that doesn't work. I went actually very recently and did a sectional with the kids in the RCC fall snare line.
2019 or 2020?
2020.
Wow.
Like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And,
that's cool.
And I was like, what do you guys want to work on? And they had this one particular exercise. And I was like, okay, can we get weird? Can we just get weird? Can we, are you guys down? Right? So I had them, I was like, okay. And I got my Med app out, had my speaker set up, and I played a tone. It was like a F.
Yeah.
And I was like, play to that. And they were like, what?
Just to the tone?
A tone. Just play to this. And I was like, I want you to try to match this tone. These are snare drummers.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay. And it's funny because they start playing like individually. They would play this exercise and they would play to the tone, and they would change things about what they were playing. I wasn't telling them anything about what to change. I was just saying, based on what you hear, adjust and see where that leads you to.
Yeah.
Let your body kind of go where it wants to go. And then all of a sudden, what you find is that then when you drum, you are now hearing something you didn't hear before. It's the fact that your drum, regardless of which drum it is, especially snare drums, because they're so high pitched and whatever, they sound like They can sound like this table or whatever. But there's a pitch.
Yeah.
You know, your stick, your head, the shell. There's a pitch that all of those things are engineered to emanate, and that pitch can shift. It can change based on how you're playing.
Oh yeah.
Technique
wise.
Yeah. And so what you end up hearing is like this ring, this tone that is underneath the playing that is continuous. You know, because if you play, you know, let's say you play too hard and you're choking off the stick too much, all of a sudden your notes sound very clipped.
Yeah.
Well, you don't really notice that as much as when you have a reference tone that is continuous.
And you're trying to match that.
And your sound is constantly stopping, you know, note to note in between notes, versus like when you hit the drum, there's like an aftertone. That then connects to the next note. And this was literally like, this actually goes all the way back to working with Sean and Ricky.
Uh-huh.
This is literally just something that we tried one night. You know, we were like, because we all know what it's like to pick sticks. When we pick sticks, we like,
you put them up to your ear, and
you put them up to your ear, like you care about what the tone is. And we painstakingly tune our drums. And then we get on the drum and then we pay attention to that, like not at all.
No, because you just want to play,
And it's a word, you know, God bless. There's a word that gets thrown around all the time. Resonance. And I don't know that a whole lot of kids know what it's like to play like that.
Yeah.
To actually do what the staff person or educator is asking you to do. They don't know what it feels like. They don't know what it sounds like. So what they end up doing is they end up really relaxing.
Yeah.
Relaxing their grip. And sometimes it works. A lot of times it works. But sometimes it's like to the point where it's sloppy, you know, and then other things sort of suffer because of that.
Like for me, I always think there's a difference between actually playing the drum versus pulling the sound out of the drum.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Like I can appreciate good sound quality when you're pulling the sound out of the drum.
Like this gets described in so many ways.
Yeah.
Like the way you're talking about, people talk about having an open sound,
a
warm sound.
Yeah.
And the thing I wanted was to come up with a way to make sure that a kid knows if they're doing it.
Yeah.
Like not, I understand, and yes, that's a positive, that's a good thing. Not sure if I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I wanted to sort of find a way into that.
Oh, that's cool.
And where I came up with that was horn lines do it.
Oh, to try to play to the pitch?
Like, you know, you stand in an arc.
Yeah.
If you're in school, like if you're in an orchestra, the oboe plays a note and everybody tunes
to that note. Yeah.
To that note. And what they're doing is they're adjusting things on the instrument, right? To make sure that they're not sharp or flat, but they're also adjusting how they're approaching the instrument. Their embouchure or the way they're, you know, like, and they do that every time.
Yeah.
Every time. And it's something that drum lines don't do. I get it, because it's all about the met and playing in time.
Yeah.
You know, and by the way, play with resonance.
Yeah.
But
by the way, yeah.
But what I loved, and look, I had no idea if this was going to work or not, or if I was going to get any kind of result. And it was fascinating to me that there was something there.
Yeah.
You know, that it was just like,
well, it makes you think for sure.
And I guess the other thing that I love about giving individual lessons is we can try stuff.
Yeah.
We're not learning a show. You know, we're not doing anything like that.
There's no deadline to meet. We can just try things and see if they work or see if they don't. Trial and error.
And I love coming up with stuff like that.
That's cool.
You know, because I understand the limit. Like everybody that I teach, I don't teach from scratch. They were all taught by somebody before me.
Yeah.
Whether it be high school, whether it be at another group. And what I look for is I look to identify if there are any gaps in terms of their understanding. Because especially in Southern California, everybody's teaching really good stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody's information is really good. Everybody has foolproof methods, to get that information to the kids. But on the kid side, on the student side, there can still be gaps.
Yeah.
And if those gaps exist, and it's my job to look at that kid individually and help them do what they want to do, I need to identify those gaps and address them.
Yeah.
And that's where I get experimental, and like we talked about, luckily I've had some success.
That's cool.
In that regard. The other thing that I really harp on, we don't have to dig into it necessarily, but I really get into the mental side. Yeah. So, the mental side of it is something that when I was looking at the specifics of what these kids need and sort of what was standing in their way, what was going on in their heads, especially like when they're at the audition and trying to, execute at the high level and let all that good training out. There were things going on mentally that stood in their way, so that needed to be addressed.
Yeah.
And that has factored into a lot of the training that I do individually, besides the hands,
That's
stuff
cool.
like that.
Okay, so you took on some private students, and now let's flash back to 2019. You were involved with the Meraki percussion ensemble, correct?
Yep.
How did that come to be?
Funny enough, so 2018 was Odyssey.
Yes.
2019, I didn't teach anywhere. And
that's right, 2020. Okay.
And I went to WGI.
Yes.
Because I had a lot of students marching. Like all of my Odyssey kids were marching. And I wanted to go, and I was into making lot videos.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go and document everything, but then also just be there and experience it.
Experience the whole thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And you never really go into the shows. You just stay in the lot, yeah.
No, I don't care about that stuff. I want to.
You just want to see the lines in the lot.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. So, but then like a year, being out of it for a year, but then also seeing it from the outside.
Yeah.
That was because I went into Odyssey right after teaching Dark Sky.
Mm-hmm.
So that was 7 years straight of teaching indoor groups every year. 2019 was my first year off. And my first year not cleaning a show for Dayton and stuff. So I got to see it from the outside all of a sudden. And it was a huge eye-opener for me, because I was walking around seeing all of my friends and people I didn't know in the weeds, in the grind, trying to do it.
Going at it.
And I was like, this is interesting, like seeing it from the outside and seeing what was going on, like emotionally and all of that stuff from the outside. So I wanted to get back in.
Yeah.
So when
one of these years, hopefully whenever it starts back up, I'd like to go to Dayton. I've never gone to Dayton. I justify it by saying, we have SCPA, SCPA here. But then I see Dayton, I see all the videos. It's like, man, I need to be at Dayton.
It's fantastic. You just have to hope for good weather.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I hear you can either be really cold or it can be like regular.
It can be pretty bad.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like it. It's really amazing.
That's cool.
So literally, somebody online, like I wasn't even friends with him at the time. This guy named Pierce Halliburton just said, "Hey, who wants to teach?" Next
just
year.
Threw it out there?
Just threw it out there.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to teach.
Yeah.
So I just hit him up. I hit him up and I said, I know you don't know who I am, but, if you are down, I would love to help you start up this group that you want to start.
Yeah.
And so we got on the phone and we talked about it.
Were you like the first one?
No, I want to say like Sean Yee was in there. I know Sean was in there before. maybe Sergio Bravo
Yeah.
before, but not sure who else. And, it was what I loved about Meraki was I was this old man,
Yeah.
and it was a bunch of people who had literally just aged out,
Yeah.
who were like, I want to start a group,
They're hungry.
I want to design, I want to put out shows, I want to start a group, and when I came in, my thing was, this is something that I'm, sort of generally motivated by. My thing was, I want to help these guys do this. Bottom line. Like, I don't want to go in there and insert my stuff. I want to see what they want to do, and I want to help them do that. I want to give them the benefit of my experience and help them avoid a lot of the pitfalls that, because I remember doing OCI and just like not having any kind of clue.
Yeah.
And just being like, being on like our fourth total rewrite of one of the movements, and just going, why, so trying to help these kids avoid that, and get something up and running was my goal. And it ended up being an amazing experience. Like, really great people I got to be on staff with, all really smart. I based my sort of mandate to them was, go test your information. Go teach what you want to teach. We'll talk about sort of like some general things, but let's see if it works.
And I remember seeing that line the few times that you were out there, and it was cool to see, and you guys actually did really well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I'm really proud of with that group is we prepared them really well. Like, when you're starting a group and you have this whole period of time where you don't know if anybody's going to audition, and then people audition, and then it's like, okay, we got to teach them.
Yeah.
And you go through training, and then you start learning the show, and then all of a sudden it's time to perform, like compete. And then there's something that you find out that day that you didn't know before, which is, are your kids ready? Because
here we go. Yeah.
Because all of a sudden kids can clench up, get super nervous, who knows what's going on in their heads. But we really focused on them being prepared for show day.
Yeah.
So we focused a lot on routine. We focused on not changing that up. And we focused a lot on, here's where we need you to be mindset-wise. Not that whole thing about like, perform like you would in rehearsal. Yeah. Not that. How do you want to feel? Like, not how do I want you to feel? How do you want to feel?
Yeah.
And the only way to feel that way when you want to is to train yourself to feel that way when you want to. And you can't do that day. You have to do it all the days leading up to that.
Yeah.
And what I will say about Meraki specifically is that they were ready. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we only got to do 2 shows.
Yeah.
But they were ready.
Yeah, sure.
There were nerves, sure, but they were comfortable. They knew what was going to happen, and they just needed to do it. That's all that was left, was them actually doing it on those days. And I was really proud of that.
Yeah.
With them.
The 2 shows you guys were at, didn't you guys get first place at both of those shows?
No.
No?
I think we lost.
I don't remember.
I think we lost to, I think we were sort of in between Elan and Catalyst.
Oh, okay.
As far as like where we were placing. But funny enough, like I didn't care about that. It's one thing to say like, oh, I don't care about the scores and all of that stuff. The scores matter, and they really impact like how the kids feel about what they're doing. So that kind of stuff is important. But I know enough to know, like, I sort of pride myself on being able to look at a show and say, can this compete?
Yeah.
Like in terms of content And I felt like we were in a good place when it comes to that. And we just needed to clean it up. And, the shows that we were at, to be perfectly honest, you couldn't really hear a whole lot of the clarity that we had been able to achieve.
Yeah.
So I was confident that we were fine, moving forward. And like I said, what was more important to me was that the kids were establishing this feeling of, yes, we got this, we're ready, and now we just need to keep learning show and keep cleaning. And then COVID happens.
COVID just threw the wrench into everything.
So sad. And, essentially everybody goes from, I think everybody was kind of in the same place where like they were either about to learn the closer or had learned it but hadn't cleaned it yet. And now it's like, stop. And, the activity is over and we can't even get together to say our final goodbyes.
No final run through, no nothing. Yeah.
Right. Thankfully there were some great things that happened. Like, Dark Sky had like that final rehearsal.
Yeah.
And everybody sort of, without their permission showed up and
it was supposed to be like a small thing and it ended up being like full, yeah.
Well, what was amazing was like, it was literally like having WGI retreat that night.
Yeah.
People didn't want to leave the floor.
No.
You had, people from every world group, some high schools, independent open groups. They just wanted to be around each other one last time to sort of say goodbye. But then one thing that came out of that was Marching Vlogs drumline.
The MV line, yes.
The MV line. And Sergio and I met on staff at Meraki.
Sergio's a great dude. He started that whole the marching vlogs.
Yeah, and before that he was doing like personal vlogs, and then he started marching vlogs, and really is a sharp young guy that's really driven to create stuff, very entrepreneurial.
Yes.
And so he sort of came to me and said, hey, there's this project that I've been talking about with the homies. Do you want to help? And I was like, what is it? And so he said, well, everything is shut down right now. There's no drum corps. And so I talked to a bunch of guys from Pulse, RCC, and Broken City, and we put together a drum line. And I was like down.
Yeah.
Totally down. And, when I got over my initial excitement about it, he then was like, well, I immediately went to, okay, well, here's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Here's this, and this. And it was like, we had the players. We had, Cameron designed everything.
Yeah.
So that wasn't an issue, but we didn't have equipment. We didn't have a place to rehearse.
The logistical side.
Yes.
Yeah.
We didn't have a place to perform. Yeah. After all this. So there was a good, at least month of figuring that out. I want to say like month and a half.
Yeah.
Like maybe like mid-May through all of June, it was calling manufacturers,
trying anything and everything.
We were talking to Lone Star, who's, Dan's great over there. And, we were talking to manufacturers, like anybody who may have been able to help.
Yeah.
We were talking to the groups, because everybody's sort of in the same situation.
Yeah.
And what we needed was something that could solve a lot of those problems in short order, because the summer was running out of time. Like we actually needed time to do it. So luckily we brought Glenn aboard.
Yeah. And Glenn's been around.
Glenn taught me at
a long
DK.
time. Yeah.
So we've known each other, and, Glenn is obviously at Pacific Crest now. And he said, let me talk to Stuart at Pacific Crest and see if this is something that he wants to support. So he talked to him, and we figured out a way, which was the raising money for charity, giving to the relationship that Pacific Crest has with the City of Industry. And so in exchange for this being a fundraiser, what we got to use Pacific Crest equipment, and little did we know, they have a headquarters.
Really?
That in City of Industry, that is a phenomenal rehearsal space.
I didn't even know that. That's awesome.
And
that's what's funny is I'm actually going to golf in that Pacific Crest golf tournament this next week.
Nice.
So I'm going to maybe inquire about that a little bit. Now I'm kind of curious about this headquarters place that they have.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think most drum corps have like a bingo hall or some sort of place. They were able to get some space that I forget exactly what it used to be, but it's clear that it was some manufacturing something. But it was it's a lot of space. It's in an industrial area, so noise wasn't really an issue.
Yeah.
And they allowed us to rehearse and prepare for the performance. And they also helped figure out a place for us to perform and helped us with the live streaming and all of that stuff. But then, there's a lot of stuff with regards to liability that people don't think about. And on top of that, COVID.
Yeah.
Which was a whole nother animal to attack. We had to do temperature checks. We had to clean the instruments. We had to socially distance while rehearsing, wear masks. We wore face shields just because we knew, I think a lot of people thought that the face shields were a little bit extreme. But for us, being around each other and talking for 4 hours at a time we needed those face shields.
Oh, yeah.
Just to be one, because there was no way we were going to allow, anybody to get COVID as a result of doing this voluntary,
that's the last
this voluntary thing. And if people felt sick, like there were a couple of occasions where people felt sick, they stayed home until they got a COVID test that was negative, and then they came back.
Yeah.
But what's amazing is that was really hard. Like, people don't understand. You're wearing a mask, you're wearing a face shield, it's super hot outside.
I was going to say August, it was super hot.
You're at 6-foot intervals. When the snares would warm up in their circle, they would circle up to warm up. They had 10 snares with 6-foot intervals. People on one side to the other side were like 15, 20 feet apart.
Wow.
They could not. And so you're muffled through a mask.
Yeah.
It was really challenging.
But you guys ended up making it work.
Yeah, we ended up making it work. And people were like, is it difficult having all of these people from a bunch of different groups play together? And my answer is, it was much more difficult only getting to rehearse once a week for 4 hours. It was much more difficult with all of the COVID restrictions than it was worrying about differences in approach.
Yeah.
I will say that, and I really don't subscribe to this idea that groups play all that differently. Anybody that knows me knows that what I see is that people play different material.
Yeah.
And different material requires different things. Like designers have their tendencies. They have things that they like. They have motions. They have the way they put things together require they lean heavily on certain mechanics, and that is what makes things look different as far as motions and what you see from the outside. They're, for the most part, teaching fundamentally the same things, and where they sort of diverge is if they have to lean on something or emphasize something heavier than other stuff.
Yeah.
So,
oh man, hold on.
Yeah.
Is that a hurricane? No, that's The gardener going
the
by.
gardener. We'll suffer through it.
Yeah.
But what I saw, what I will tell you from everything that you didn't see, as far as videos that were documenting our rehearsals and stuff like that, was that, player to player, our challenges were much more just individual stuff that you would see in any line.
Yeah.
You put people in a line and everybody has individual tendencies.
But you didn't have, what's crazy is you didn't have the time for people to play together in a line that you normally would.
Right.
To make things gel. But you guys still did though.
Yeah. And on top of that, we wanted to make sure that it was the kids who ran it.
Yeah.
So sure, I helped and Glenn helped. And we had people like Caleb come in with the basses, and Nick and Easy came in.
Yeah.
And John Wicks came in. But it was, Elijah and Zach.
Yeah.
And Gilbert and others in the bass line. Like there was so much experience in that line that they knew how to work the material and what the standard was. And it was a very collaborative thing, and the part of that is marching vlogs, like their tagline is like for the members, by the members. We didn't want to go against that spirit.
Their mission statement. Yeah.
Yeah. And also we had the luxury of doing that. Those kids were that good.
Yo, for sure.
That they were able to do that. And so here's what I'm really proud of. What I'm really proud of is that they got to do it.
Yeah, they were actually able to have a performance.
Like now more than ever, I mean, when you're in the marching activity, like say in Southern California, there's no breaks. It's essentially you do fall band, winter drumline, drum corps, repeat.
Yes.
And there are no breaks. At the most, you'll have a couple of weeks before move-ins or a couple of weeks before band camp.
Yeah.
But that is and so it's very easy to sort of get on autopilot. Now all of a sudden everything stops, right? And the only thing that you want as a performer or as a staff member is to do it.
To have something, yeah.
Is to like stand in front of people or be in a line that is playing on actual drums together.
Yeah.
So what we wanted to provide was an environment. Like what I'm most proud of is that the kids, we were able to set up this bubble, this environment that they enabled them to be able to do that. And Sergio's project got to live.
Yes.
It got to be a reality. And Cameron got to put himself on the map as a designer.
Yes.
Which he absolutely deserved.
Oh, it ended up being great.
And the community got to see Drumline. Even if it was online on YouTube, they got to see something that wasn't a throwback to something that already happened.
Yeah.
They got to see something as it was happening. And I feel like the community needs that, So even though it was really difficult, massive success in my eyes, with regards to checking off all the boxes of what we set out to do and the level that we were able to do it at. And also, like, I got to meet and become friends with a bunch of performers that, and actually other staff members that I didn't really know. Yeah,
the younger generation.
Yeah. And pick their brains. About how they think about all of this stuff. So then, fast forward to now. Like, it's one thing for WGI and DCI to get canceled last year, this last year.
Yeah.
But now schools, based on, depending on like where you are in the country, are trying to figure out how to do this now.
Safely, yes.
Yes. And WGI just recently put out what they're going to do, which is, offering up an opportunity to compete virtually, right? But everybody is sort of in this zone of how are we going to do this, right? Staff-wise, designers, like how are we going to do this thing, right? And then on the other side, the kids are sitting there going, what do I have the opportunity to do? What opportunity have I lost as a result of this? Am I done?
Yeah.
Should I just move on?
I think that's a big question that's going to have to get answered for a lot of kids is that it? I mean, you get a little taste of no
college,
activity,
of like, or life after college.
Life in general, yeah.
And so the big question that I've been thinking, and look, I actually think, most organizations are doing the responsible thing, which is, let's continue to educate. Let's do it virtually. But even though that is, practical and responsible, and probably for a lot of groups, it's the best that they can offer.
Yeah.
I think there's more possible. I recently, anybody who's friends with me on Facebook, I posted the other day just a question of like, has anybody announced anything that excites you? That said, here's our plan. And as a member, as a person who could still be, participate in this, is there anything that's been announced that makes kids go, yes, I'm going to go try to do that, or I cannot wait to see that?
Yeah.
And the answer, it was a small sample size, right? My personal friends list. The answer was a resounding, not really.
Not yet at least.
It's more just online learning like they're doing for school, and all they want to do is get together and perform.
Yeah.
Right? So
like my daughter is in high school.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that she misses performing in an ensemble, being with her drumline,
Yeah.
She's a senior in high school this year, and it just kills me that we can't meet in person to do anything.
100%. And, it's funny, like they're actually, I think I want to say like the one group that announced something that you can tell got kids really excited was Blue Coats announcing that Jacob Collier was going to participate in whatever education initiative they have going. And everybody was like, yep, sign me up for that.
Yeah.
But I think that, what I would say about things moving forward is, on the one hand, everybody has to think about what they're limited to based on restrictions. But what I hope is that people look to their imagination a little more. Like MV Drumline required imagination.
Yeah, for sure.
It required, saying there's gotta be a way to do this, and let's just keep trying to do it until somebody tells us to stop, responsibly.
Yeah. And luckily they were able to bring that whole thing
and
to be.
And like the thing that I talked about before with the sort of cycle that we live in of constant, like when things are normal, constant drumline, like just year round. Well, that forces you to do the same thing all the time. It's either drum corps, drumline, winter drumline, or fall band. There's other stuff you can do. And if you were ever going to have a time to do it, now is the time. Because once things go back to normal, everybody is going to rush back towards that. But right now, what you have is you have a bunch of groups, that have equipment, that have kids, and what can they do with that?
Yeah.
And designers with imaginations that can put something together. And so it requires a lot of like out of the box thinking.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you go like, if you look at it as an opportunity, and if you ever had a thought of, I wish I could do X, like I wish I could take drumming and do this with it, something. But I can't do that because there's no place that I can do that normally. Well, now is the time to do something like that. And what I would say is we need it. Like the community, the kids, they need to see that something is happening. They need something to get excited about. Somebody needs to do it. And if we have to wait until April to see how these sort of virtual things go or whatever, man, that is a long time.
Yeah. A long time without anything. Yeah.
And, so what I will say is I actually did get a personal message in response to my post from a kid who's marching an independent group who was like, we actually do have something planned.
Oh, really?
That we're excited about. And I was like, yes, I cannot wait to see what you guys come out with.
Yeah.
And so what I hope is that everybody out there who's like an educator, an artist, who wants to express themselves and use this activity and the skills that kids have in this activity and this moment. If you ever had a project you wanted to take on and try to make happen, now is the time.
Something out of the box.
Something of the box.
Outside of the box.
Something, the way I put it is something where when you hear it, people go, oh, I wish I had thought of that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like I remember when, like George Mason last year was a good example of that. Like, oh, there's a different take.
You mean 2019?
2019.
Yeah.
There's a different take on a drumline show. Or like when Imachi drumline came over, and I think it was 2013, and it was the Ninja show, and all the drums were on rollers. Even though that had been done before, that was like, those guys are thinking out of the box.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a drumline show. It can be something else. It can be something that utilizes the skills of drumming, the experience of the activity, and, like I said, it's not, and actually it's funny because these are the types of things that I've been talking to the folks at MV Drumline about doing next.
Yeah.
Like what we're thinking about is what can we do in the interim that people aren't doing.
Just something completely different.
Because when we put together MV Drumline, nobody was doing it.
Yeah.
So moving forward, we'd like to keep that same spirit going. Let's continue to show people what's possible, and hope that it's exciting.
Yeah.
For people to take in. So that's our hope moving forward. And, it's like with politics and with COVID and with the job market out there and with just sort of 2020 being horrible as like a thing.
Yeah.
We need more than ever positive stuff.
Agreed.
Besides,
I agree with that completely.
Drumcore Coffee Shop Podcast is a good first step.
I hope so. Hopefully we can keep it going.
Yeah. But, it would be nice to, I think everybody does. We feel that need out there, and it would be nice to have it addressed. And I would love to be surprised.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if has anybody ever put like something together for America's Got Talent or something like that?
Right. Like
something outside the box like that. Yeah.
Right. I mean, there is a lot out there culturally.
Yeah.
That we can tap into. And sometimes you don't know that you're inside the box until somebody does something that's really completely foreign and just opens your eyes to what's possible.
Like you said, I wish I would have thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I get it. Most of the people, they're doing this because they love drumming, they love drumline, and they want to do drumline.
Yeah.
But, and so we're just going to have to wait for that to come back.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, let's see what's possible.
Yeah. Agree.
You know, let's see what's possible. Let's move forward.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good time to wrap this up.
Absolutely.
This is episode 1 of the Drum Corps Coffee Shop podcast. Well, George, that's our first episode.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, for sure. Well, thank you for co-hosting with me in the future.
And I'm really excited about the conversations that we can have moving forward.
Yeah, and hopefully we get some cool people to talk to us.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's funny. It's like we sort of have our plan for people that we know we want to talk to.
Yeah.
But I would, the coffee shop is a big place.
Yeah, it's a big community. Yeah, for sure.
So what I would say is, if there are people that want to come on the podcast because they have something they want to talk about, hit us up.
Yes, definitely. And not just West Coast. We're talking East Coast, Midwest, anywhere. Japan, Indonesia, anywhere. We'd love to talk to everybody.
Absolutely.
So well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Drum Corps Coffee Shop podcast.